Taking a quick peek at my scanners right now to see if there's anything going on that I missed. Doesn't look like much. AREN is back up a little bit. It's around 50 cents. Pretty light volume though, only 690,000 shares traded. Also, I think still under that 52-cent level from yesterday, which is its current high. But I have no other listed stocks really that I care about aside from NETE that are new today. iTech fell apart nicely off of that morning spike. Do I trade every day? For the most part, yeah. Although this summer I have hardly traded just because it's been an insanely busy summer. A lot of travel, visiting my family, visiting my fiance's family, planning for a move, planning for a wedding. So there hasn't been a lot of time for the market. And since summers are typically a little slower anyway, I don't mind. Oh, there's the OGen breakout. New highs on that. I, for whatever reason, was totally unprepared to buy that. Not something I'll play too big. I'd probably risk it down to that dip low earlier of 245. Look to add to my risk later. I smacked the 266 offer with 10,000 shares. I'm long 10,000 OGEN from 266. So I have about a 20-cent a share risk on it. It's just too pretty of a breakout setup not to play. And once we see how dips hold over the next 30 minutes or so, I can probably move my risk up higher than that 245 area. So what should I replace to show OGen? Probably NETE. We'll come back to that one later. So one question I got sent into me from you guys was how to differentiate a real breakout from a fake breakout. And in the moment right now, I don't know 100%. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier. I don't know 100% right now if this breakout is going to work or if it's going to fail. But I like the odds. I feel like the odds are on my side that it does work. I know my risk. I've taken a smart size given my risk. Yeah, this 245 area right here is where I'm risking off of. And I'll let it develop. And we'll just see. We'll see how it goes. What is my price target? I actually do not have a price target right now. I'm just going to let the chart develop and see what my read on it is and just try to figure it out from there. It's pretty common for me not to have price targets. And really quick, I just want to see a daily chart of OGEN. So it's 52-week highs now. But let's go back a little further, a few years. Never really traded any kind of volume like this before. But it does still have overhead levels. This spike right here, I mean, it was only 77,000 share a day, but it topped at 275. So you have to wonder if that plays a psychological role. But after that, maybe round number of 3, I don't know. So I'm just going to give the breakout time to work. And if it fails, it fails. I like the setup, I like the breakout, but I probably don't like it quite as much as if it were at all-time highs, let's say. Am I following level 2 here? I am watching it. I did see there were big sellers at 275. I'm not incredibly concerned about that. Breakouts tend to start choppy. I cover that a lot in my DVD. The fact that you think about a breakout and you think about, hey, the stock should fly. But that's not often the case. You look back on old charts, you look at breakouts, and you see all that information in an instant. It's like, oh, the stock broke out past 2 and it went to 3. But it might have taken hours to get there. So in the moment, when it's starting like this and it's only run 5 cents so far, it's easy to be uncomfortable. It's easy to say, wait, why isn't this going up faster? What's wrong with it? Something must not be right. But I very rarely see breakouts that just absolutely skyrocket from the start. Been alerted that Gevo is now green on the day. Nice. That's another one that hopefully can start squeezing. Now, since this is basically straight up off of its 244 lows from this morning, and now just ripping through green, I probably will short a fast rush towards 3 on this if it happens to have one. The stronger the spike, the better on Gevo. But if it's slow and if it takes its time getting there, I like that idea a little bit less. NETE is holding up well. And that makes a little more sense now that I know that SSR is on as well. So NETE, I'm just a spectator for now on that. Hopefully it doesn't crack and fade off without me today. I think Monday is probably the day I look for the big play there. But I'll keep you posted if anything changes and if I start to feel the need to trade it. No, oh, never mind. That was covered. Is trading easy for me? It's definitely easier now than when I first started. I think it's like anything, the more time you put into it, the more comfortable you'll get. But it still is work. I still do have to track things outside of market hours. And I mean, the markets are constantly changing. I started off trading only OTCs for the first couple of years of my career. And then after the big marijuana boom in the start of last year, the OTC market almost completely died off. There's still some opportunities there here and there that are really great, but just nowhere near the number of them that there used to be. So having to force myself to transition into NASDAQs, learn new setups, all of that, I mean, that took work. It takes work to adapt to changing market conditions. But I also think that's part of why I like trading so much, is because it is a challenge. I like pushing myself to get better every day. To clarify my OGEN position, because there are some questions on it, I am long from 266. I'm long 10,000 shares. Nothing major. If I see dips holding very well, I may consider adding as this breakout develops. I'm happy to see this big offer at 275 getting tested, especially because we talked about how that might be a psychological level. So let's see if we can get through there and then how it reacts once it does. I did not stop tracking my trades on Profitly. That was a question I just got. I just have hardly traded all summer. I will have it updated this weekend. I traded this week and I think one day last week, maybe 2. Can I tell you when the DVD is coming out? Yes, I can. It's coming out tomorrow, midday at some point. New highs here for OGEN. This is pretty encouraging. I probably can go back to an intraday chart now. Sorry about that. I've had it sitting on a daily for the last 5 minutes. Good to see YRCW cracking a little bit. Should get a lot uglier once it's under 19. Do I record all my trades in a journal and analyze my wins and losses? That's something I did more back when I first started trading. I don't do it so much anymore. Posting my Profitly trades every week and going through them is kind of my way of doing that in my head right now. But back when I started, the analysis was a huge part of what made me successful, because I was a failing trader for the first 6 months I traded. And that was even after 3 months of just nonstop studying. But I was trying to play something like 7 or 8 different setups, and it was just too much for me. So I had to take my step back, look at where I succeeded, where I failed. And once I started focusing only on the areas where I succeeded, I saw much better consistency, and that's how my account started to grow. And that did mean missing a lot of other plays. But I was okay with that. And then I started slowly branching out from there once my account started growing. VLTC, perk here. I won't buy VLTC on this first 885 break. If it consolidates another hour or so before doing it, then maybe I will. So yes, I do absolutely recommend keeping a trade history for beginners, because I think almost every single one of you who's new to the markets is going to go through a period where you really struggle, and that's normal. I don't think I know a single successful trader who hasn't blown up their account at least once. But the biggest part of trading is being able to learn from your mistakes. And I know that's much easier said than done sometimes. I mean, I took a $290,000 loss on Lake because I was stupid and stubborn. And then I turned around and did the exact same thing on PBMD 7 months later. I mean, you'd think a $290,000 loss would really drive home the point that it was a lesson I needed to learn. But I took another. So, I mean, it's very tough to stay disciplined. I will never say that discipline is easy. But for the most part, I'm good at discipline, so that helps. One more time, my entry on OGEN was 266. So right after the 265 break. I saw a big seller come in at 266 after it quickly perked to 270, and I decided I was going to fill into the big seller. There was a penny above the breakout level. It is pulling back a little bit now. But we'll let it make these pulls. We'll let it consolidate for a little bit. We'll see where it bases out, and hopefully I can move my risk up higher than that 445 area. VLTC, it is through 885 now. Since it did hold 860 for the past 15 minutes, I might consider dip buys on VLTC with 860 risk, especially if this breakout starts off pretty strong. Right now I'm just going to watch it though. I'll let you know if I decide to do anything there. Can I pull up the 6-month chart for YRCW? There you go. So this kind of gives you an idea of why I was interested in the short up towards 20. And unfortunately, I was a little early on my starter after the rebound, after the hard crack. I mean, from 1910. But yeah, all this failure up near $20 is what drew my attention. The reason behind going short SGYP is because yesterday, after its big panic in the morning, it bounced and 2 times perked up in this 915 to 920 area. So today, when I had a straight up spike off of 840 back up into this area, I took my early starter, just a little small position at $9 even, risk up to this area where it topped out twice yesterday. Because I would call this, a fast spike up into the resistance area. Now it has held up surprisingly well so far. It's been consolidating for the last 45 minutes or so. So I have to start thinking about this and keeping a little closer eye on it because it might just perk up and rip through 920 soon. But I'm not going to cover at 910 because I'm scared. I'm not going to cover at 915 because I'm scared. I'd much rather pay the extra 5 to 10 cents a share and stick to my risk and respect my risk. But a lot of times when you see a spike up into a resistance like that, you get some fade after. So that's why I say I'm surprised we haven't seen more fade yet. GVO testing 270 area. I wish I had more volume. Since that one is a little more liquid, I'm going to make it really be perfect in order for me to short it. So I'm not going to take too early of a starter on GVO. That needs to get into the 290s for me. I have a question here on brokers. That's something I'm not going to really talk too much about this webinar. It's in the DVD, and I cover it pretty well, so I'd say hold off till tomorrow and watch that segment in Chapter 2. Okay, so OGEN back near highs of the day, and that is now 2 dips that we have held in the 268 area. So this one is actually holding above its breakout level very well. I'm used to them trying to shake people out, dip it down to 260 or 255. So this is actually pretty encouraging that it's held up so well. And now that it's to new highs of the day, I'm not necessarily going to do it quite yet, but I'm getting to the point where I might consider moving my risk level up to that 268 area, where I'm basically cutting for about break even if it breaks below. Up into the 280s now. Or I could even start accumulating dips and risking off of that 265 to 268 area. Oh, part of the reason it's spiking here is because Tim just bought. So oh boy, now I'm going to be really tempted to sell into this. Yeah, I may wind up taking a little bit off soon on OGEN. How much influence do I think Tim has on stocks? I mean, let me start by saying this. It's not like it's intentional influence or anything like that. The problem is Tim has a lot of subscribers, and no matter how many times you say don't follow alerts, don't follow alerts, don't follow alerts, people are going to follow alerts. So I know one question somebody sent in to me was along the lines of a lot of times, well, I'll answer that one later and come back to this point, but because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But when you have a large subscriber base and a stock that trades kind of thin like OGEN, I mean, if people choose to chase alerts, yeah, you're going to get that volume burst. You're going to get the spike up. And more times than not, I think market makers probably take advantage of that and sell into that and then shake out all the people who chase strength. I have just put in a sell order for half of my shares at 284. I am going to pay myself into the strength a little bit. I'm sitting on the offer and I have not filled any. So if I miss, I miss. I'm not going to chase weakness because I have to get out some. But that was a big volume burst, and 286 has stuffed it for now. So I'm constantly taking profits early. I'm constantly playing it safe. That's just who I am as a trader. So I don't mind if I leave some money on the table. I'd much rather lock in some profits when I have them. And to take that a step further, and I think I touched on this briefly in the DVD, but sometimes with these thinner stocks, if a guru alerts them and it has a big spike, there are a lot of times I'll short into that spike. I like shorting strength. If people are going to chase strength into resistance areas, I mean, they're going to be buying my sells. Oh boy, if I had just now seen YRCW, would I consider this a short? That was a question. And the answer is probably no. And this is the first kind of strong perk it's had now. So here's a stock that's not doing what I want. It's been slowly grinding up towards its highs all day. Do I stick to my $20 risk or do I cover into a dip for a smaller loss? When I'm down on positions, that's a decision I frequently have to make. And it's not like I haven't given this a chance to work. If it had been 10 minutes after I entered, 30 minutes after I entered, an hour after I entered, and I was covering, I probably wouldn't love that cover because I wouldn't feel like I had given the stock a reasonable chance and it had held below my risk the whole time. But in this case, I've given it plenty of time and it hasn't panned out. So I think I'm probably going to take a small loss on YRCW into dips here soon. OGEN, I still have a sell order sitting at 284. I've only filled 200 shares of it. We'll see how dips continue to hold on it. I mean, despite the fact that Tim bought and some subs chased, it is still a very, very nice chart setup. I guess you've previously determined how much you are willing to lose prior to placing your trade. Is that correct? That's absolutely correct. I took a little bit under a $2,000 risk on my YRCW short if I had to cut it over 20. That maybe is a little bit high for a starter position, but it's a number that I'm okay with. It's a number where I'm not going to be freaking out when I'm in the trade because I say, oh my gosh, I have $2,000 on the line. It's a number that keeps me comfortable, and staying comfortable while in the trade is very important. Now I'm getting a little uncomfortable because the chart has done absolutely nothing like I wanted it to. And I talked about having the choice now between either cutting it over 20, like waiting for that break to happen, or just cutting it into a dip. And at this point, my lean is cutting it into a dip. So I'm going to let this thing turn a little bit longer, but hopefully we get a dip back down to the 950, 940 area. And I probably will take off into that for just under a $1,000 loss. And then I'll let this do its thing the rest of the day. Ooh, RJET. That is having a nice little spike. Very glad I took off that other half of my position at 445. So we're up to about 480 on RJET. And yesterday, what were some key resistance levels? Let's see. Actually, 480 was a key resistance level yesterday. I think I'll sit back and just wait on it though. I'm going to make it get silly if I'm going to take a short on it. Maybe up towards 5, yesterday's highs. SGYP might finally be getting ready to roll over here. Let's see. Okay, I moved my 284 sell down to 280. Got out a few more shares. I do want out the half position right now. I want to get down to 5,000 shares. And at this point, I probably would definitely be using that. I'd definitely be using that 465 area as my risk right now on the other half. So I'm down to 5,000 shares. I took profits on half. Very nice squeeze on RJET. OGEN, the other concern now is, okay, so Tim bought the trade. A lot of subscribers followed Tim into the trade and they chased. What happens when Tim sells? Well, then the subscribers who chased are probably cutting their losses and selling. So when that sell alert goes through, this probably yanks a bit. And because I'm out half of my position, now I'm a lot more comfortable sitting back on the other half and giving it a chance to hold that 465 area. I know I've locked in some gains already. So I don't have to worry about watching my entire profit disappear. I have a lot of questions to catch up on. Let's see. Sorry, I'm getting to that point where I'm watching a few too many stocks, so it's getting a little harder to keep my eyes on the question screen. I have to think about where to take off the YRCW. Make sure OGEN doesn't totally break down, and then I'm still watching SGYP and VLTC. Somehow NEAT escaped my screen. I don't know how that happened. There we go. So a question here is for the people with smaller accounts who can't really afford to size in and out. Would I recommend just buying as close to support or selling as close to resistance as possible? Yes, I would. I mean, if you want to be in one shot, out in one shot, you should be, well, especially for the entry. Let's talk more about the entry than the exit. With the entry, you should be a lot more selective. For me, I can take small starters that are a little bit lower or higher than they should be, because I know that if the stock does give me that ideal entry, I can just size up, get my average down, and be really happy with my position. You should avoid those starters, though, if you're the small account and you want to just be all in one piece. Make the entry be perfect. It's okay to be selective. It's okay to miss trades. And wow, RJET is $5, or it just was. SGYP is way too boring. It's been sideways in a 5-cent channel for the last hour, it feels like. So this RJET is really getting into my wheelhouse where I might want to short. Yesterday's highs were just over $5. If you go back even further than that, if this squeeze really does get stupid, and I wish I didn't have pre and post market stuff up right now, but there was a lot of resistance in the 540 and 550 area as well 2 days ago. These can be a little tricky for me. I get myself into trouble being stubborn sometimes on these, because let's say I take a short right now risking off of $5 on RJET, and then it busts through $5. It's very easy for me to move my risk up to that next level and say, okay, well, now I'll just risk it off of 540. It still has this resistance overhead. And sometimes you'll get that rare one where it just keeps breaking resistance level after resistance level, and if you keep adding to the position, it really snowballs on you. So I'm trying to work on going into trades like this with a really clear goal of where I want to risk. Now RJET, that is a fairly hard pull off of $5. So I think that I'm going to maybe short the next rebound and risk it off of 5. And if it busts through 5, or no, 510, that was yesterday's high, about 510. If it busts through 510, I'll be done. I'll cut it, and then I'll wait for higher to restart. Because it's a lot easier to take a small loss and restart higher than it is to fight a stock all the way up. Would I consider going long on RJET? No, I would not, because this spiked straight up from about $5.55 to $5. If I were going to long RJET, I'd wait for dips. Just watch Tandem Trader. Could you explain what the SPY is for? I've never really used that when I'm trading. I know Nate does. I know some other big time traders do. I think the general idea is you follow the SPY to see what the overall market is doing, and then see how certain stocks that you might be following are trading compared to the overall markets. The idea is maybe the markets are really weak, but a stock you've been watching for a short sell keeps holding up. And the markets being weak should have been a factor to drive it down, and it didn't. So that tells you something. But I can't speak too extensively on it because, like I said, it's never really been something I've paid attention to. Can I show you the multi-month breakout pattern on OGEN? Yes. Whoops, that's the wrong chart. So it had the big run back in early June to 265. It faded back, consolidated, come back, all on really low, practically untradeable volume. Had its first spike into resistance 2 days ago, which I shorted, and it failed the first time. Day of consolidation, and now today it's broken through 265. NETE, man, it looks like it wants to roll over. 2 fails at lower highs now. So VLTC, despite that 885 break, hasn't really sped up yet. Hasn't given me that silly breakout I wanted. So I'm still not, I mean, if I were to buy VLTC, it'd probably be into dips like this, but I'm not going to buy it. I'd just much rather wait, let it develop. Hopefully it has a big squeeze, then I can short it into the squeeze. If not, though, that's okay. What did I just replace over here? Oh, right, SGYP. That had a little perk. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to let SGYP get to the point that I let YRCW get to. This is a stock that, I mean, it's consolidated way too well for about an hour now. This is no longer a fast spike into resistance. This is a stock that has held up very well. And after this consolidation, it makes that break and then next leg up a lot more likely. So I just covered my shares. I'm flat on SGYP at 910, which was right at the high day break even. Lost $488 on that trade. Like I said, I'd rather get flat and reattack it higher and keep on fighting it down here when it's not working. And if this does get through 920 and can get really silly, maybe we could attack it near yesterday's highs, maybe 970 or so. That would be a really nice trade. I'd really enjoy that one. A little crack out of VLTC. So that's what you don't understand. The first time on OGEN, I shorted into the resistance, but today I bought the breakout. What made me change my mind? What made me long biased? And it's the fact that this was the second attempt. The first time I usually expect it to fail. But the second attempt, after a couple days of consolidation, that becomes a lot more likely to break out. And also, I didn't buy it until it broke out. It didn't get to that resistance 2 days ago. Today it did. So I wasn't buying in anticipation today. I was waiting until the move happened. Since I did lock in some gains on OGEN so far, I'm trying to stay patient with my other half. And so far, I haven't seen anything to scare me away from it. SGYP perked through 920, failed the first time. Yeah, SGYP, that was decent timing on my cover. Spike probably was because it was right as it broke through today's high of 910. Nice perk there on OGEN. Taps 290. Someone said they sold it at 288. That's awesome. Good sell into strength. Would I now move my risk level on OGEN to 272 since it was a higher low? No, I wouldn't. I'd still use that first one, the 268 area. Maybe even just call it 265 since that was the breakout, or 264, I guess. Sometimes these things will have little support breaks along the way. What matters to me is it's above the main support. Tim, are you only trading listed stocks, or are you trading OTC and pink sheets as well? Today, just listed stocks. I will trade OTCs anytime a good setup comes up. I think OTC is still my bread and butter in my mind and some of my favorite setups. But I just don't get that many of them anymore. But when there's a good OTC play, I'll be there. Would I add to OGEN at a certain level or no? I might consider buying a dip back down near this support that I just talked about. With these listed stocks, my general motto is buy weakness, sell strength, whether I'm shorting or longing. So if I'm going to be buying weakness on OGEN, it's going to be near a support level that I know I would want to get out if it broke down, so that I'm not adding that much risk to the trade. On YRCW, would I consider holding overnight? No, I really don't have any desire to overnight this stock because it's so strong, it's so close to its highs, and who knows how it gaps on Monday. I'll get a little more aggressive about overnight once I feel like it's on the backside of the move. I mean, if this didn't stop me, like this hasn't even given me a dip yet, but if this doesn't stop me out at 20 and it fades back off to say the low 19s, first of all, I'm probably covering into that fade. But if I don't and it's well off of its highs, then maybe I'll consider, okay, I'll give it an overnight. But when it's up this close to its highs, I have absolutely no desire to be stubborn on this one. A little ramp back by RJET. With this, I'm considering a short with 5-ish risk. YRCW, I think this is going to stop me out in a minute. Although I must say it will be a relief to get that off my radar. It's been pretty boring today. I do not have a stop order for YRCW. It is a mental stop. That's something I've been debating recently, whether I should start putting in the hard stops, because that would make it impossible for me to get stubborn. And that might make up for the few times here and there where a stop gets triggered and then it slams right back down. Okay, so we have our Sykes sale on OGEN. So that explains this dip partially right here. So now let's see how the dips hold. I still have 5,000 of my shares from 266. So far, it is catching in that area that I thought might act as support. We talked about maybe I want to add back to my position. Well, this would be the area. But I'm going to wait for higher lows first. On YRCW, I would not consider adding a short here, anticipating a slap back down to lows. No, I really wouldn't in this situation because of the nature of how it got back up to 20. If it had been like a 30-minute spike off of 1850 back up to this area, then I absolutely would. But it's been a slow all-day climb. So that makes me a lot less willing to add, because I think it makes it a lot more willing that it's going to break and hold. So far, OGEN doing a decent job of defending this dip. I'm going to be a wimp, though, and choose not to add back my sells from earlier. Do I normally zoom in more on my charts, or is this how I usually view them? Yeah, there'll definitely be times I'll zoom in more. Just case by case. For those of you who missed it, the first half of my OGEN I sold at 280. The other half I'm still sitting on. I have a question here on overextension. I explained that one in the DVD, so I'm going to leave it to the DVD to answer that one. Do I like this VLTC dip as a long? Not especially. lost a couple support levels in a row now, and they weren't major support levels, but I'm not much of a dip buyer, so I mean, until I start tracking my dip buys very meticulously and figuring out if I'm any good at it, I wouldn't value my opinion on dip buys too much. Did RJET confirm a lower high in my opinion, or will I wait and see if it tests 5? That sure did look like a lower high. I did not get any. I did not put on any shares as a short, unfortunately. I guess I saw a question earlier. I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but it was asking kind of what's my pattern of trading throughout the day. And the pattern I've noticed in myself recently is that most of my trades happen during that first couple of hours. And then when we get to midday, sort of like right now, I'm a lot more hesitant to pull the trigger on ideas that I have. And I'm not really sure if that's right or wrong of me, but something like RJET, where it did basically give me a play that I just outlined and said, hey, I might be interested in this. I didn't take it. I don't know if I get tired or if I just get really cautious and trying to hug my morning's gains or what it is, but yeah, most of my trading happens early in the morning and late in the afternoon. Midday, I just not so much for me. I tend to stay away from midday action. VLTC, that was a fast spike back, so whoever just called the dip buy, nice call. That's a strong perk. What are my gains and losses so far on the day? Well, a $2,300 gain on my RJET swing that I covered up. I'm up $700 on OGEN, and I still have half the position open. So I get 700 realized on OGEN, and the other half is still open. SGYP, I've lost about 500, and YRCW is still open, but it's down. So realized on the day, I'm at about 2,500. But YRCW, if I have to stop out at 20, that's going to wipe out most of my day. Unfortunate that probably my worst trade of the day is the one where I had the most size, but sometimes that's the way it goes. I just haven't really seen anything else besides YRCW that was liquid enough for me to get in really big. How am I doing this year compared to last year? Well, I've taken most of the summer off. Up through the end of May, I was on pace that was very similar to last year up until PBMD, and that knocked me back. So, I mean, so far it's a slower year, but we'll see how the fall trading goes. We'll see how winter trading goes. I really hate setting profit goals for myself. I really hate saying, oh, I have to beat last year or anything like that. Some years there's going to be more opportunity than others. I just try to trade where there's opportunity. So, I mean, yeah, I really try to keep that external stuff like profit and loss out of it, because the second I start thinking about that is when I start pushing, and then I start making uncharacteristic mistakes. Do you have a trading limit for the day? Like if you lose this much, you would stop? No, I don't. It's more about being self-aware and knowing what my state of mind is with my trading. If I totally mentally rattle myself on a big loss, I probably will stop. Oh, here's some potential crack on OGEN. I may have to take off the rest of my position for break even. But again, I try not to base my decisions around money. I don't want to stop if I'm up so much or down so much. If I feel like there's opportunity, if I feel like I can trade with a clear head, I want to be there. Someone asked if OGEN is a potential short if it starts to break down here. And for me personally, I would not think about shorting this into weakness. But if it started having pops, like maybe it perked back up to 280 or something like that after a little bit of a crack, I would maybe consider shorting into that with a high of day risk. But I hate chasing weakness on these. I'm going to give this a couple more cents of wiggle room. And if I don't like how it acts, I'm selling into the next rebound. That is my current plan on OGEN. Does your PBMD loss have anything to do with you taking most of the summer off? No, not really. Most of the summer off has a lot more to do with external factors. Just so much going on in my life right now. And also my fiance wasn't working all summer, so I definitely wanted to spend some more time with her. Now, after PBMD, there's no denying that I needed time off. I could tell. I traded for a couple weeks after that loss, and I was making some uncharacteristic trades where I was taking too much size. So, I mean, in a situation like that, after a big loss, typically, yes, I will give myself a week or two off to try to mentally recover, especially once I see that I'm trading very poorly. But no, I wouldn't take 2 months off because of a loss. Do I like AREN as a swing short? No, I don't think I do yet because it's a chart that's still holding up. It went red yesterday, it recovered. Right now it's only a penny off of its all-time highs. So AREN, I think it probably still has a little further to go still. But I would never be long it overnight because I'm too scared of OTC halts. Will I be posting a watch list on Twitter every day? Yes, I do my best to do that. Obviously, in the summer when I wasn't trading, I wasn't doing it. But if I'm around, I will post watch lists. Does it look like OGEN met its highs and is now going nowhere? What I see is that OGEN hit highs of 290 and now it's fading back a bit. And this could be, again, this is where it kind of turns into a little bit of a guessing game, and I like to stay out of these situations. But now it's faded back, and this is either starting to consolidate and it's going to build back up for another break later today, or it's just going to keep on fading off and crack and die. So that's why I haven't sold quite yet, because if this is the start of consolidation and a ramp back up, I really do expect this to hold around this level, around the 260 to 265 area. And like I said, if it has a snap under there, I'll sell my other half into the first rebound. But as long as this area is holding, I could still see it grinding back. I could still see it having more in the tank. RJET is grinding back also. It's held 480 now pretty well. So I'm hoping this breaks through 5. I really would like to see this have a nice spike into the mid 5s. I said the 5 short I thought might be a good idea. Well, the mid 5s short is one where I feel like I really, really like that idea. That one I would not pass up on. So hopefully that can get it going. If there's a short sale restriction, can we not go short? You can still short if there's short sale restriction. You just can't hit the bid. So with NETE right now, there's short sale restriction. The bid is 42.1. You won't be able to short by smacking the bid at 42.1. You'd have to put in a sell order at 42.11 or higher and wait for it to get filled. You have to fill into an uptick. Do I ever get the urge to splurge on material things? I'm not much of a splurger. There really has never been a great temptation, I don't think, for me to say, oh man, I have to have this Lamborghini or I have to have whatever. I'm more of a save my money type of person, I guess. If I'm ever splurging on anything, it's just going out to eat a lot, and that's really about the extent of it. I guess the other splurge thing is travel. I'm doing a lot more travel. I've probably traveled more in this year than I have in most of my life. I've taken a lot of trips. Try a main event of the World Series of Poker. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I'm not quite ready to put 10 grand on a poker tournament yet, though. 2 years ago, I did a $1,000 event in the World Series of Poker with my friends, and all 7 of us are out within the first 6 hours or something like that. So I think my poker skills need a little improvement before I go back to that. RJet, even though it's about to break 5, I'm not going to buy this break into strength. Because the high yesterday was what, 510, something like that? And then there's still plenty of other resistance levels overhead. So that keeps me away from wanting to buy this. If it spikes, great, I'll take a short. I'll let the trade come to me. I got a couple questions here asking if I have any investments outside of trading. Right now, I really don't. Trading is my only stream of income right now, I guess. Or at least my main stream of income. RJet is through 5 now. Let's see if that can get a good spike going, hopefully. Eventually, I would like to diversify a little bit more and find other ways to invest my money. But being 26, it's just not quite that point in my life yet, I feel like. So down the road, I'll start looking into it a little bit more. But right now, I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at. Yes, I guess selling DVDs is also an income source now. What are my thoughts on the sideways price action of NETE? It's one of those guessing game areas for me right now. If I were long it, I would want to be long with my risk off of 40. That'd be no-brainer risk for me. Short would be with risk off of high of day, but from down here, that's not super appealing to me. I can't tell if it's weak and can't perk up, or if it's supporting 42 really well. Volume has really died off in the last half hour. Oh, well, there's the perk. So hopefully this has more in it. I would love this thing higher on Monday. That would be such a fun play. Crazy question, but as a car enthusiast, do you own any sports cars? Not quite a sports car, no, but I do have a Mini Cooper that I bought for my fiance about a year ago when we moved into Colorado. But that's the extent of my sporty type cars, I guess. So maybe we can get a picture of my Mini Cooper next to Tim's Lambo. There are many names for chart patterns. Do you use any of these? I'm assuming you're talking about like Head and Shoulders or Cup and Handle, stuff like that. And no, I really don't think about that too much. I just, I guess I see charts in my own special little way when I'm just looking at basic support and resistance, and that's what I stick to. And I don't worry too much about those super well-known patterns. I guess Cup and Handle is probably the closest to the one I'll buy, because I like buying breakouts, and breakouts generally are a Cup and Handle pattern. Where are you moving to now after Colorado, if you don't mind sharing? I mean, it's still going to be in Colorado, but it's just further west. It's more in the mountains and a smaller town. So I'm not going to give out my address or anything like that, but it's going to be a fun little small mountainy town. I'm looking forward to it. Could this be the dip for YRCW? Yeah, this is probably a dip. I should think about taking off half of my shares, just so I'm not covering them all up near the high of the day. Because I could easily see this as being yet another higher low and then coming back later. So pretty soon here, I'll be out 1,000 of my 2,000 shares. Nice to see it weakening though. Sorry, I've gone quiet here. I'm watching YRCW pretty closely. Just deciding if I want to take off my first 1,000 or not into this. I'll give it a minute more. Let's see. What else is going on? I don't see you getting very emotional reading YRCW's rise. Is this because you have a plan to hang in there still within your range up to 20? Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, it would definitely stink if I had to cut the loss at 20, but because I entered with the size that I entered with and the dollar risk that I entered with, that's not scary to me. I don't need to be emotional. And I don't really feel like I'm in danger of YRCW getting out of control unless it breaks through that 20. That's the other thing. Do I use trend lines? No, I do not. RJet, this spike is starting to look better. Up at the 510 area now. I'm going to take pre and post market off of this so that I can see it a little clearer. No, that's still not great. So the part of the chart I'm focused on for RJet is these perks right in here that all filled out, or maybe even these ones near the end of the day on Wednesday. So that 525 to 550 area. I could see this stopping. Hopefully it gets that high in the first place. OGEN, it's continued to hold up, but it hasn't exactly rebounded yet. Can't say I'm a huge fan of that. I would like to have seen a stronger recovery off of it. I'm going to take off my other half of OGEN. I just sold it at 265. And that may be a mistake selling right at support, but I get uneasy during consolidation. One of my weaknesses as a trader, so I'll look for a rebuy later today on it, but right now it's teetering too much for my liking. And the fact that it has not been able to rebound more than 3 cents off of this dip low, how long ago was that? 15 minutes ago? It just feels wrong to me. So the other half of OGEN, I'm out for break even, or minus a penny a share. So the overall OGEN profits were $660. Still sitting with my 2000 YRCW. Just watching this fade, trying to get a feel for how much further down it could go. And yeah, here's a little bit more crack on OGEN now. We'll see how 260 responds. RJet's still going. SGYP, a quick double top at 924, quick drop to 911. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean it did fail just over that 920 mark, just like yesterday. It's one I probably won't touch at this point just because the volatility is lacking so badly. When you're a new trader and you have a small account, you need to trade volatile stocks. Because even if you have a winner on SGYP, I mean, let's say you get a short at 920 and you fade it to 905 or 910, that's not even a 2% gain. And if you have a small account with a flat rate commission structure, that's going to just eat your profits alive. And it'll be impossible to overcome commissions constantly trading stuff like that. So that's part of what helped me early on in my days too, is that I learned to focus where there was volatility. Now, SGYP I hoped would be a little more volatile than it was when it had that straight up morning spike and then just went sideways forever around $9. But now that I know kind of the nature of how it's trading today, I've lost interest in it. I'm going to be conservative and take half of my shares off on YRCW at 1940. So it's going to be, if I fill, it's going to be negative $300 on the first 1,000 shares. And then the other 1,000, I really want to ride the rest of the day, I think, give it a chance to break down more. I'm either going to stop out at 20 or I'm going to cover it into a nice end of day fade. Or maybe it'll just consolidate and go sideways all day. Who knows? But I want to lessen the risk a little bit, so I'm going to take off half here if I can get the fill. I've seen a couple questions about how my DVD relates to Sykes DVD or Nate's DVD, and I just did an FAQ post on my blog, tradetheticker.blogspot.com, and I touched on some of those things. So definitely check out the FAQs regarding the DVD if you haven't yet. Again, the website, for those of you who don't know about my blog, is tradetheticker.blogspot.com. And actually, I think I can link that. So there we go. Hopefully that went through. Right, I didn't add the YRCW up in the high 19s because I did feel it was too uncertain, because it was the slow grind back and not the fast spike that I wanted. For me, it's not so much, I mean, part of it is, okay, what price is it at? But the other part is, what is the nature of how it got there? And there's my cover on my first 1,000 shares of YRCW. So I have negative $300 there right now. It's kind of been a tough trading day, a little annoying, but RJet maybe will give us some opportunity here. That's up to 525. I will very likely start scaling into RJet short here in a few minutes. Short RJet, that's what I'm talking about. I know my resistance level, so I can go back to a 1-minute chart. Why aren't I buying RJet on the way up too? To be honest, I'm just not as good at buying. I'm not as comfortable at buying. Like I said, a big part of trading is you have to feel comfortable. You have to be confident with what you're doing, because without confidence and conviction, you make emotional bad decisions. And at this point in my trading career, I just don't have that buying something like RJET. I don't have an entry along this run where I feel super comfortable getting in and feel like it's high odds that it keeps going. So, I mean, maybe down the road as I improve as a trader, that's something I will develop. But I'd much rather wait for it to get into my ideal resistance zone, my ideal short spot. Have I tried boxing any more trades? No, I haven't. The only situation I would ever box in these days, and boxing, for those of you who don't know, means being long in one account and short in another account so that you net out to no position. I would only ever do that if I felt like, oh no, there might not be shares available tomorrow on this, so that I could like lock in my shares right there and then just sell my long position the next day when I was ready to be net short. News came out on RJet 16 minutes ago. Did I consider this? It doesn't really matter to me. I'm playing the chart first and foremost. News or not, this is a chart with some big resistance overhead. Now, maybe it will break the resistance, but if it does, I've taken a trade with good risk reward and I know where to stop out. It doesn't really matter to me how it gets there, it just matters to me that it gets there. So you started shorting right from when you started trading? Actually, I didn't. I used to buy way more than I shorted. When I had the smaller account, I was mainly a long trader. I guess along the way I have shifted to more of a short bias, but also I was more comfortable with longs, with OTCs. And part of the reason about that was because OTCs level 2 was far more useful. So I wasn't just playing off of the charts, I was playing off of level 2 with OTCs. And that added tool gave me the confidence to be in some of these long positions and some of these run-ups. But with listed stocks, I just don't have that same confidence or feel like I have that same advantage. So I think that's part of the reason I'm mainly short now. How do you find momentum before it happens if you were to long? Unfortunately, I'm not the guy to ask that because I don't find momentum before it happens. The main long setup you'll ever see me take is a multi-day breakout or buying a new OTC promotion, which there still are some here and there, but they're not nearly as frequent. But those are the main long strategies of mine. And I am starting to work on, like I said, maybe figure out how good I am at dip buying and things of that nature. Have I ever borrowed on margin? The extent of my margin use has been where I guess the one time I can think of where I really used margin was on one of my Fannie Mae trades, but it was only margin on that specific account. At the time I had something like 3 or 4 accounts, and the amount of money that I was in on the trade was still less than all of my accounts combined. So I've never margined myself to the point where I maybe I have like $10,000 between all my accounts and I'm in a $30,000 position. I've never done something like that. I have not taken a starter yet on RJet. Now that was kind of a hard crack off of 527. So now if I am looking for a starter, which I think I might be in this situation, it's going to be into the next pop, up towards that 527 mark. Are there times when you hold stocks over a week? Maybe if I'm being stubborn and I'm waiting for a position to come back to break even. I did that a lot more last summer than I ever have since. But no, I'm very rarely swinging stocks. Maybe a day for some of them, but I don't really take long-term positions. A little perk off of 510 for RJet here. It's a tough spot for me to want to take an entry because I said my resistance zone on this was probably the 525 to 550 area, looking back a couple days on the chart. So given that this is the lower end of the resistance zone, I mean, yes, it had a hard pull there off of 527, but there's definitely still a part of me that would like to see it higher. So if I do take a position here on this and do a perk, it's going to have to be starter size, and I'm not risking it off of 527. I'm risking it up more off of the 550 area. NETE is under 42. If it loses 40, it's probably in some significant trouble. OGEN, if this had any good perks from this point on, I probably would be more short biased. because this has faded pretty hard off of its breakout. There probably are still some breakout buyers from between 11 and 11:45 who are holding bags and need to sell into that. So I think it's going to be really hard for this stock to recover and stay recovered the rest of the day. My average holding period for a trade, somebody asked about, that is probably under a day. On average, I'm probably in a stock only a couple hours. Do I already have orders on RJet, or would I react when it pops? I would react when it pops. I don't usually put orders in ahead of time, just because every now and then you'll have that rare stock that puts out news midday, and if your order is in, things could get really ugly really fast. How often do I withdraw money from my broker account? Pretty rarely. That's kind of a hard question to answer. Back when I first started, it was pretty much every month when I needed to pay some sort of bills. Now it's more like quarterly when I need to pay tax estimates. Looks like RJet, that was a lower high up near 519. So I may have missed this one too. I was waiting for a little too perfect of an entry. And that is why I take starters like I took on YRCW earlier this morning at 1910, because I thought it was going to just roll over and fade back off and maybe get down into the low 18s. And I was wrong, and they let it grind up on me. But RJet, this may be one where it actually does. But at the end of the day, I would much rather miss a trade than take too large of an early entry and totally mess up my plan and have to fight a stock and be underwater on it. There's nothing wrong with the early starter as long as you size in appropriately and it's part of your plan from the start. Oh, follow-up question. Do I reset my account starting amount every year? Every year, yes. At the start of the year, I have pulled money out of my accounts and rebalanced it, but I don't have a set number yet that I say, oh, I'm going to have it at this number at the start of every single year. I guess I just kind of wing it and say, like, okay, how much is in my accounts? Where do I want it to be? I'm getting a lot of tax-related questions because I mentioned that. I am absolutely no trader tax expert, okay? So I'm not going to even attempt to answer any of those. I hardly understand it myself. I just kind of nod and say yes to whatever my CPA tells me to do. So if you do want to understand trader tax a little bit better from a trading tax professional, here, I'll send a link through for everybody. But the website is greennfh.com. This guy, Robert Green, is a trader tax professional. He puts out a tax guide every year that has all kinds of weird rules and regulations in it that you'd never think of. I've used him for 2 or 3 years now and been very happy with the service I've received. And I don't get referrals or anything for sending you guys his way. Like, I truly believe that's the best, because the second year I was trading, I tried using H&R Block to do my taxes. And I don't know much about trader tax, but I knew enough to know that they did it totally wrong, which is what led me to going to him. So just, something to consider for you guys. And I'm not sure if he works for only American traders. That's something you'll probably have to ask them. Would I place a trade now, or am I waiting for after 2:30? I'll place a trade if the setup is there. I don't really care too much about what time of day it is. If I see a setup I like, I'm going to take it. But midday, there generally are far fewer setups that I am interested in. When I first started trading, I was really not scaling in and out and using starter positions. Maybe I'd scale out, now that I think about it. But generally, I was taking my entry in one shot, and I was waiting for my ideal spot to get in. And again, that meant I missed some trades, but that was okay. I mean, I remember when I first became successful and was becoming consistent, there were many days where I wouldn't even make a trade because I just did not see that setup that I wanted to take. So don't feel like you have to trade every single day. Do I know what percentage they take from my capital gains? The top bracket, I think, is 39%. So on the federal level, yeah. Number one tip for beginners. My number one tip for beginners, I would say, is find your niche. Don't try to do too much like I did. Don't try to trade 7 different setups. I mean, maybe experiment a little bit at first, but then figure out where you're good, figure out what makes sense to you, figure out what you're comfortable with, and just stick to that. Ignore everything else. Do I regularly hold stocks over weekends? Not regularly. Sometimes I will if the setup is right, but it's kind of rare, I'd say. How many screens do I use? I have 3 27-inch monitors right now. I'll talk about trading setups in the DVD. You'll see a lot more about that there, kind of understand my journey of where I started with my setups, where I am now. You don't have to have 3 27-inch screens to be a trader, but I think it's good to have at least 2 monitors. When I start planning for the next trading day, it is after hours usually. I mean, maybe I'll have an idea midday. I'll say, oh my gosh, this stock is crazy. I really want to trade it tomorrow, but I won't put together a trade plan until I see where it closes and maybe if it's gapping up after hours or not. We've been in a bull market for some time. Once it turns bear, will you change your strategy much or my screening? I mean, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, but my general thoughts on that is that I'm still going to be looking for the same setups. I feel like a bear market will probably mean there'll be less of them, but I don't think that I'm going to make any drastic changes and start trading wildly differently. I'll just accept that there's fewer opportunities and still just try to nail the ones that do present themselves. Someone asked, how do we send you questions? Well, exactly how you just asked that. That is the form where you ask. I'm just really buried in questions that are coming through fast, so I really apologize for those of you whose questions I'm missing. It's just really, really tough to keep up with. And once again, I know I said this earlier, I'll repeat it now. Some of these questions I also am just skipping because I answered them earlier in the webinar. So you can either, or maybe they're in the DVD. So if you didn't hear your question answered, hopefully it's not because I missed it. Hopefully it's because your answer is somewhere else. Little snap out of RJet. Too bad. Do I trade in after hours? Usually no. Usually pre-market and after hours is just too illiquid for me. Sometimes I'll look at those levels and kind of consider them for next day trading or maybe after the market opens trading if it's pre-market, but I'm generally not doing too much there. NETE is under 40. So I guess those pops into the 46 area earlier were nice short. Question if they're going to get a physical copy of my DVD. At the moment, there's no plans for that. It's going to be streaming only. If that ever changes, I'll put up a blog post or something and let you guys know. If I were to start over with $1,500 right now, what would my strategy be? I'd have to say it would be trading listed stocks because right now there's just not much opportunity in the OTC market. I mean, I guess I would still trade the OTCs that occasionally came along that I wanted, but knowing what I know now and having the experience that I have, if I put my account back down to $1,500 or $2,000, I'd still be trading these most volatile listed stocks and mostly looking for the parabolics into resistance to short, trying to take 10 to 15% gains where I could. Did I demo trade or paper trade? Yes, I did for a little bit, and I thought it was a pretty worthless experience because, well, I guess my paper trading wasn't legit trading. I wasn't actually pressing buttons. I would just look at the market and say like, oh, I like where this stock is at, so hey, I just bought, and then like track on a little spreadsheet like in my head like I just bought this stock at this price. I just sold this stock at this price. So I had no experience actually putting in orders. I had no experience, having to click the buttons. But most importantly, I didn't have real money on the line. And that's the big problem with paper trading is because there's no emotions involved. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of emotional factor because, you have pride and you want to be right. But the emotion that comes into play once you have actual real money at risk changes everything. And that is, I think, what so many beginners struggle with and why so many people run into trouble. And I do have my DVD. I have a nice little chunk on emotions and how I think it's a good way to try to manage them. And I touch on it as much as I can. But part of it is just time and experience. For those of you who were gone, here's an update on my positions. I am completely out of OGEN. My first half I sold at 280, my second half at 265. My entry was 266, so small gain on that trade, $660. SGYP I'm completely out of. I cut that at 910 when it broke past the high of day. And YRCW, I am down to 1,000 shares. I covered into the last dip at 1940 just to take a little bit of risk off the table, and because this chart has done nothing even close to what I wanted it to do. And this last 1,000, I'm either going to take off if it breaks past 20 or take off into a breakdown later today. I guess no matter what YRCW does, though, even if it goes sideways the rest of the day, I don't plan to swing it. I'll be out of my entire position by close. So, and also the dollar amounts. The SGYP loss was about $500 loss. Currently, I have negative 300 realized on YRCW with 1,000 shares still in play from 1910. And then I have my 2,300 gain on my RJET swing short from a couple days ago. And I missed the reshort into the spike, unfortunately. My opinion on Superman's trading style. I kind of want to hold off from that because I have really never studied it, so I don't know much about it. So I don't want to start throwing around uneducated opinions. I know he trades low float stocks, which means they're illiquid. I know that is an area where I am not at all comfortable. I mean, I have heard a few of his subscribers have found success, but with illiquid stocks, I think it's very, very tough to be successful. A little more fade here out of YRCW. This is a good sign. I'll just keep sitting back on that one. And NETE has parked back up to about 40. Very possible 40 acts as a top here. But hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully this thing finds a way to recover into the close and set up for a nice crazy parabolic on Monday to short into. Any new OTC promoters on your radar? Is Stock Tips done? Again, you go to my blog, you click on the Stock Promoters tab. That's everyone right now that I think is worth following. Stock Tips, they have put out 2 duds in a row, which is definitely concerning. I'm not gonna make conclusions and say whether they're done or not done quite yet, but it doesn't look great for them. But I'm happy with what I'm seeing out of Finest Penny Stocks in that group, the guys who are doing AREN. They've had several successful multi-day promotions now. Unfortunately, AREN was about 6 months after their last one, so it was a really long wait. I don't know what the holdup was there. But if they can get back to kind of being like the normal promoter who releases once a month or something like that, sort of like Awesome Penny Stocks was, because I do think there's some Awesome Penny Stocks connections with these guys. But it'd be nice to get picks a little more frequently from them. Do I ever jump in on an IPO? I really don't. It's more that I just am not familiar with them, and I've never really tried. So and they move really fast too. That's the other thing. So I stay away from IPOs for the most part, just because it's an unfamiliar area. If I had $50,000 to trade with, would I put it into one account or multiple accounts? Oh, that's a good question. If I was looking to be a short seller, probably I'd split it between 2 Centerpoint accounts, ETC and Wedbush, although their minimums are 30,000, so never mind. I'd probably start off with one account, build up a little bit, and then do an ETC account and a Wedbush account because they have different locates. Now, one thing I've heard from people before who are just starting and have that $50,000 or so range is I've had a couple people who have come to me before and said, hey, I started trading 2 weeks ago with a $60,000 account and I'm down to 20,000 now. And I'll definitely caution against this in my DVD. You'll hear it there too. But with that kind of money, do not start trading large because you're going to make mistakes when you first start. It's going to happen. Don't let those be expensive mistakes. If I had started trading with a $5,000 or $10,000 account instead of $1,500, or I mean, I guess I had a little borrowed money from my parents, but if I'd been taking positions that were $5,000 or $10,000, and instead of blowing up $1,500, blowing up $10,000, I don't think I'd be here right now. I don't think I would have been able to even recover from that amount. So just keep your losses small, go through the motions early, get used to having money on the line, pressing the buttons, make the mistakes you're going to make, learn all the subtleties, and once you start to feel consistent and feel comfortable, then it's time to size up a little bit. Question is, what do I mean by ETC and Wedbush? This gets kind of complicated, I guess. Different brokers have different clearing firms, and the clearing firm is who determines what you can and cannot short sell. So that's, I'm not going to really explain it too much more in depth than that. That's the basic of what you need to know. Do I use the stocks after hours and pre-market price as support and resistance? Sometimes I will. In the example of SGYP yesterday, I mean, that was up at $11 pre-market briefly. Even spent a lot of pre-market over $10, and then faded off really hard and opened in the low 9s, I think. So in that case, when it was spiking up, I was hoping it would spike more towards 10. I think it only got as high as 970, but I was hoping it would be like a $10 spike or so into those pre-market levels that had failed. And that would have been a short I would have considered. So I guess all I can really say is it's kind of a case-by-case basis, but it is something that I will take into consideration sometimes. How does volume affect your decision making, or does it? The biggest effect volume will have on my decision making is what kind of size I play with. If the stock has really, really high volume, millions and millions of shares, I feel comfortable trading large size. I feel like it's scalable because if something goes wrong and I have to get out, I'll be able to get out no problem. But if it's a more liquid stock like OGEN today, I'm not going to trade 40,000 shares of OGEN and expect to get out of that with ease. So yeah, the biggest thing that comes into play for me when it comes to volume is the size I take. I think I got a question here saying if I had to pick either ETC or Wedbush, which would I pick? I would pick ETC because right now, lately they've had more locates and they're lower cost. Opinion on possible breakout on SNMX. Not really a chart for me. I know it's failed under 6 a few times in the past 3 or 4 months, but let's say it does break through 6. What's the reward? There's another resistance level right here at 640. So I mean, maybe you get 640 if you're lucky, but then it's just into the next resistance zone. And I like to have more than 7% upside when I'm taking a trade. So yeah, that's not one that I'd really be interested in. Also looks kind of illiquid to me. Looks very illiquid to me. Was this chart BLTC? I don't even remember now. I don't think it was. Well, in a minute I'll miss something, and then I'll remember. Oh no, it was RJIT. No, RJIT's down there. I'll figure it out. It was BLTC. Okay, thanks. Do I only place limit orders? The vast majority of my orders are limit orders. Every now and then I'll do a market order. I talk about that a little bit in the DVD on some of my live trades, where I'll say I'm using a market order here. Here's why. Would I consider buying OGEN here, basing near support? Again, the volume has really dried up on it. That's the biggest turnoff for me. But you're right, it's not dropping anymore. It's not really had much of a perk either. I might consider, if OGEN had some kind of a strong perk, like to 270 or something like that, then maybe I'd think about buying the next pullback on a higher low, risking off of 255, which is where this is bottomed out. So I need to see higher lows on OGEN first. I need to see some kind of sign of life, some kind of perk. And once I have that, then I will buy into a dip. Consider a short here if RJET rebounds a little for a possible afternoon fade. Yeah, that's definitely a potential short. The longer, it's sort of like YRCW though. The longer this consolidates, the less I like it. I like shorting into fast moves towards a resistance level. I don't really like shorting after it's been grinding and consolidating for 30 minutes or more, because then I feel like the odds come down a little bit that it actually holds under that high. But in a situation like this where it's up a lot from its morning lows, I mean, if you're shorting into a perk to 520, your risk is 7 cents a share if you're risking off of high of day. It's kind of hard to argue with 7 cents a share risk, especially when big picture it looks kind of favorable. So I guess it sort of boils down to, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the good risk reward trade, or are you looking for the like high odds trade? High odds meaning very good odds that it will work out in your favor. You mentioned you don't care about news. When a stock is going up, do you first check the reason before I short it? Not always. Sometimes I'll give it a quick glance and just see like, oh, hey, like it's up because of a contract. But I'll never look into details or really care about anything like that. If I could go back to 18 years old, would I still go to college or would I just trade? I would do both. I would definitely still go to college. I mean, part of college is, I mean, you do have to learn the discipline to do things you don't want to do, like your homework or stuff like that. I do think it's very valuable life experience, and if you go to the right college, it's also really fun. Someone asked if I treat Fridays differently, because the theory that kind of floats around out there regarding Fridays is that because short sellers, excuse me, because short sellers may not want to have to hold short over the weekend and pay margin or pay interest on their shorts for 2 nights, that they may be covering or more likely to cover on a Friday, which would trigger a squeeze. Now, sometimes I guess I kind of see that, but in a lot of cases also you don't see that at all. So it's one of those things that I guess I'm a little bit aware of in the back of my mind, like, okay, it is a Friday, but I'm not going to let it massively affect my trading decisions. I'm still going to be trading the chart. I think I'd be a little quicker to cut a loss. I think that is the main thing. It would be like, if a stock is breaking past my risk level, then maybe I'd say, oh crap, it's a Friday. Like, I better cover this because it could get into kind of a nasty squeeze. What college did I go to? I went to a small school in Illinois for my first 2 years, and I ran track. And that was called North Central College in Naperville. And then after that, I transferred to Marquette University in Milwaukee. Someone asked about my average daily gains. I'd say so far on the year, I've probably been averaging about 5,000 to 6,000 a day when I've been trading. I've taken a lot of time off though, and PBMD probably knocked me back a bit off of that. But I feel like about 25 to 30,000 is a pretty average week for me. But it took me a long time to get here. Keep that in mind too. I mean, it's funny. Like my mindset has kind of shifted ever since I started trading. There was a time when I was ecstatic with $1,000 a week. There's a little bit of a perk out of OGEN. Ugh, widespread right now. 260 by 265. Gonna make picking up dips kind of hard. In college, I studied finance. I will say this, I do not think that my finance degree has helped me at all with trading. I remember, actually, I started trading my last semester of school. And I remember one of my classes, I gave a presentation talking about pump and dumps and how some of these crash and day trading and stuff like that, and was pretty much flat out told by my professor, like, you can't make money day trading. I still need to email them. Let's see. Please elaborate on paying interest on stock orders held overnight. Is that the norm for most brokers? If you're short, yes, it is. Most brokers will charge you overnight interest if you're short because technically you're borrowing money from the broker. So what that rate is, it varies stock to stock. So if I were to hold my YRCW last 1,000 shares overnight, 1,000 shares at 1910, well, I guess it goes off a current price. So 1,000 shares at 1960 is a $19,600 position. And then I'm going to have to pay some kind of an interest rate on that dollar amount for every night that I'm holding and borrowing from the broker. It only applies to overnight, not intraday. So holding this YRCW short just today, if I cover it by close, I won't have to worry about interest. The charges usually aren't too bad, but some of the stocks, once they get harder to borrow or have had really ridiculous runs, you'll see some pretty ridiculous annual interest rates. I know I've seen probably 150 or 200% at one point, but then you break that down to a daily and it's probably a couple percent. So if you ever want to know what the interest rate to hold a stock overnight would be, ask your broker. The live chat feature can usually tell you that in just a few minutes. Oh, someone got to ask, because I ran track too. What events did you do? I was a sprinter. I was 200 and 400. College, it wasn't as fun because I was a lot better in high school than I was in college. So that's part of the reason I transferred, because I just kind of got disillusioned. Is Thinkorswim the best charting setup you use to view charts? I'm not sure I'm gonna say that Thinkorswim is overall the best charting software, but it's free and I'm really comfortable with it. And I love being able to do the little custom zooms in a click, where I can see as much of the chart or as little of the chart as I want to. So it's what I grew comfortable with. It was the first charting software I ever used, and I've never really looked back. What's my average percent gain per trade? On winners, it's probably about 6%. I think my profit will say that. On losers, I don't know what it is. Hopefully less. I've seen a few questions about the Millionaire Challenge, and what I'd say about that is I do recommend people try out a lesser plan first that's not quite as expensive, like penny stocking silver or something like that. You got to get a feel for it first, get a feel if that style of teaching is for you. Definitely do silver because you get video lessons still. The nice thing about the challenge, I think the best thing for a lot of the challenge students is the webinars. I give a webinar, well, I haven't this summer because I've been traveling and busy, but up until this summer I'd been giving 2 webinars a month. I know Michael Good gives webinars. He was very helpful to me in my early days when I was firing questions at him in the chat room. And then I know Sykes probably has 1 or 2 a week also. But that's the main extra feature you get with the challenge. And then I think all of Tim's DVDs come with it too. I could be wrong about that. I unfortunately was a little lazy when it came to watching DVDs. I've only seen 3 DVDs, I think, aside from my own. Can I repeat the name of the charting software I use? Yes, it's called Thinkorswim, and it is provided by TD Ameritrade for free. Was I kind of timid to trade when I first started? Absolutely. There were a lot of cases where it was really, really hard for me to pull the trigger. And that's one of those things you just kind of get over time. I know I had that period of time though where I'd just sit and watch a stock do exactly what I expected and say, oh my God, why didn't I take that entry? And you watch that enough times, you see yourself be right enough times, and eventually you start pulling the trigger. And there's nothing wrong with missing those plays early. Why did I fund my TD Ameritrade account with 35 cents? Well, I used to trade here. It was the first broker I traded with. So I guess I pulled all of my money out of TD Ameritrade except for 35 cents. Did I have a fear of public speaking when I spoke at my first Vegas conference? Yeah, I've always been a more introverted person. I haven't liked talking in front of crowds. It's a lot easier for me now. I guess I kind of compare it to like, doing a speech class in school or something like that. And back then it was also a lot harder because you basically learn a topic in 1 week and then have to talk about it and try to sound intelligent about it. And that was always really tough because, you're cramming in all this knowledge about something you don't necessarily care all that much about. So with something like anytime I give a Vegas speech, I mean, yeah, I'll always start off a little bit nervous when I first get up there. But once I get in the flow of things and I'm talking about something I'm really familiar with and really comfortable with, it becomes so much easier. Do I trade all day? Yeah, I'm typically in front of the market from open until close. Not so much pre-market and post-market. Usually I'm away from my computer right after market close. I very, very, very rarely stick around for something after hours. And as far as pre-market goes, back when I lived on East Coast time, I was a lot better about waking up around 8 Eastern. Now I'm, since I'm on Colorado time, and I'm not much of a morning person, I usually miss about the first 45 minutes of pre-market and then kind of stumble into my office and figure out what's going on. But if there's a big setup or something really major in play, I will force myself to get up earlier. How much time did it take me to become profitable? It took me 9 months. It took me my first 3 months of let's back up. I first signed up and joined Tim's service in February of 2011, and I took the first 3 months where I was just studying video lessons and watching the chat room here and there. And that was all I did. I didn't place any trades, and I guess I paper traded in my head a little bit at that point, and oh my gosh, they were all winners. How great, um, on paper. And then I started trading in May, and then trying to juggle working at State Farm and trading June through end of August, I guess it was. And I guess I was okay at first. I mean, I was trading a $1,500 account. And, I tell this whole story in my DVD, so I don't need to go into too much detail right here. But basically, it took me 6 months of trading after 3 months of studying before I finally got back to break even. And I did blow up that $1,500 portion of my account. And luckily, I had worked that summer job because that did allow me to say, okay, 1,500 more goes in, and I'm going to give this one more chance. And I took the lessons I learned from those losses and learned from them. And that's part of what really helped me take big strides forward ever since then. You're $2,000 short of the pattern day trader rule. What do I recommend for you to get back over it? Just be selective. Take your time. There's no rush. The market will always be here. There will always be setups. So the worst thing you can do is start pressing and say, oh, I need to make $2,000, because then that's going to make you force trades, make bad decisions. It's going to happen when it's happened, or it's going to happen when it happens. So just sort of sit back and be patient, and whatever you've done to be successful so far, just keep it up. What has been my longest consecutive losing streak, and how do I handle them? That's a good question. I guess I don't think about losing streaks too much. I've always been able to get, at least 3 or 4 green days a week. Well, not always, like ever since I became consistent. So if I'm thinking about longest losing streak, it was definitely back in 2011 when I was still learning and just starting. Oh, hey, YRCW, 1901 bid. So maybe we do get that afternoon breakdown and fade. So this is exactly why I didn't cover it in 1980. Because I always find it worth risking that extra 20 cents up to my stop loss level than covering into the top of something like that. Did I know it would be the top? No, but it's just kind of a strategic think about the odds kind of thing. Why don't I trade through Thinkorswim? Because they don't really have anything that I need. They don't have locates. They aren't all that great for OTC trading. So I just, I go to brokers that are better suited for what I want. Let's see if we can get under 19. What brokers do I currently use? I use SpeedTrader, which is mainly my broker for buying, although I guess I did short SQYP there today. And I use Centerpoint. Those are the only two I'm trading with right now. But Centerpoint, I do have both the ETC and Wedbush account. This has been a nice little ramp back by OGEN. Oh, speaking of stock tips, here comes an email from them saying, New pick could be announced any day. But I'm not sure I'm going to play their next one on release day because their last two have been so crappy. I need them to prove themselves again first. YRCW, I definitely could make a case for covering my other half into this yank because it is right on that nice round number of 19. But I'm going to stay patient with it. I'm going to look for it to crack more later. But if 19 keeps holding, then I'll get out down around here for break-even-ish on my other half. What time tomorrow is the DVD coming out? I'm hoping around noon Eastern. I'll talk to Profitly and try to finalize that all. But I am making sure that it definitely does come out tomorrow and there's no delays or anything like that. Is SureTrader, in my opinion, the best account or the best broker for small accounts around $2,000? Let me put it like this. If I were to start over with $2,000, I think I would have to choose them for the sake of getting around pattern day trader rule, because they have ETC clearing and those locates are generally pretty good. Now, I haven't been with them a long time, and I know I've heard some stories here and there about annoying little glitches and stuff like that. I don't know if that's with the DAS software, like I use with SpeedTrader, or if that's with their web trader. But I think I'd be with them, and I'd make sure I'm using their actual trading platform. And maybe that's an idea for our next project, is open like a $2,000 SureTrader account and show how I attempt to grow it. But no more projects for me until after I've moved and after the wedding. Someone says they lost $600 with SureTrader Web due to crashes. Yeah, that's part of the reason I don't like web-based traders. But yeah, that's the kind of story I just hear too much of. And I mean, gosh, I'd love to recommend anything else, or I'd love to go anywhere else if there was another option, but there's just nothing else you can do with that kind of sized account, I don't think. Okay, guys, well, we are midday. It's a little slow right now. I'm going to get like a 5 or 10 minute break here right now just to grab a bite and drink a little water. And then we'll pick right back up. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back in a little bit. Just taking a quick breather.